June 24th was supposed to be another summer day for most Venezuelans, and for the most part, it was. Warm temperatures, scattered showers, and gray skies throughout the day. But shortly after 6 p.m., disaster struck. A massive 7.2 magnitude earthquake shook the country. 39 seconds later, it happened again. The second earthquake was more powerful, 7.5 magnitude. In less than a minute, much of the country was leveled. Thousands of people lost their lives, tens of thousands more lost their homes. Millions were affected. Hi, I'm Haya Panjwani. On this episode of The Story Behind the AP Story, we go to two disaster zones in Venezuela, the capital Caracas and the coastal community of La Guaira. We'll hear from two journalists that live in Venezuela about the immediate aftermath of the earthquakes and the developing humanitarian crisis.
I'm reporting here from my apartment in Caracas, Venezuela, where an earthquake just shook the entire building minutes ago.
That was Juan Pablo Arraez. He's an Associated Press video journalist and has been reporting on the scene since the moment the earthquake struck.
It's like nothing I've ever felt before, and I hope I never feel again. I mean, all of us, none. I think nobody who feels an earthquake wants to really feel it again. But it was by far the most scary experience I've ever felt. It was shaking so bad, and I'm up north, so it felt very heavy. But it was heavier a little bit down south in Caracas. The first thing I saw was my neighbors just coming down the stairs along with me. The first thing I did was grab the camera and my things. The first shoes, luckily I had a pair of shoes just standing there in the living room. I just put them on, grabbed the camera, the computer, and just went to the street.
I was actually covering the aftermath of the Colombian presidential elections. I was in Bogota.
That's Regina Garcia Cano. She's the AP's Andes correspondent. She also lives in Venezuela.
When our colleague Juan Pablo Arraez sent a message in Slack saying strong earthquake, and I immediately then dropped what I was doing. Thankfully, I was in front of my computer and started looking for a report from the USGS website. When I saw that the scale was a 7-point magnitude, I got really scared for everybody first, but I immediately started reporting. What we did right away, knowing that communications are difficult in Venezuela when there are, natural disasters or other situations, Juan Pablo immediately went out on the street and started doing interviews.
I began interviewing my neighbors, the first shot I did was actually at home. My apartment didn't suffer structural damage, but the glass where everything went to the floor, so that was like the first sign of aftermath of the quake that I immediately saw to put it out in the wire as soon as possible. So that was the first shots I sent out to my colleagues at desk. Then I began interviewing my neighbors. Quickly, my neighbors here, I live in a building. Next to the building, there's a house where a wall came in from the neighbors. So I did that, spoke with them, and then waited for my camera assistants / motorbikes, which is the way we ride and move along here for every story, mainly every story. So when my motorbike arrived, I went to the disaster zone here in Caracas, which is eastern Caracas. So as soon as I arrived there, I saw the scale.
The main airport in the country, which services Caracas, the capital, is actually located in the state of La Guaira, which was the hardest hit state by the earthquakes. The government had to close the airport because it still has serious damage. So I had to figure out a way to get back, right? And so I decided to take a flight from Bogota to a border city in the Colombian side. And then from there, I got in a cab that drove us. I was joined by a Bogota-based photographer. So this driver took us all the way to the state of Barinas in Venezuela. So that's about a 7-hour drive. And then we were met in Barinas by a trusted driver that we worked with in Caracas, who then drove us the rest of the way, right? Which were about, another 7 hours. And he took us straight to La Guaira to start reporting as soon as we got there. So it was essentially 24 hours of travel. And I started interviewing people, assessing the situation, trying to get an idea of, was the government responding? How were people doing? Were there first responders there? Had humanitarian assistance arrived? We had learned as we were traveling that different countries had sent rescuers.
When we reached La Guaira state, the coastal state most severely damaged. In La Guaira was pure destruction everywhere. It was pure devastation. It was pure chaos. It was debris all over the place. It was dozens of buildings. It was house after house destroyed. Fires, houses on fire. It was just the most devastating scenes I've ever seen. The most chaotic scenes I've ever seen. And
as we were approaching La Guaira, everywhere I turned, there was a motorcycle. It just felt like hundreds of them were headed on the same direction that I was. They were carrying water, bottled water, picks and axes, shovels, food, even more water, some medical supplies. And all these things were being carried by civilian motorcycles. And then the motorcycles that I would also see going by that belong to the state forces, what I saw was men and women in uniform carrying a gun. I didn't see any of them at that point carrying what I thought would be more useful, which was perhaps a shovel or water or anything needed to help rescue people.
There was this family at one of the government housing constructions, and they were retrieving the bodies of the two kids. And so the family had the kids in the bags. They were together, and I just saw the mother screaming and passing out as she screamed. And it was right on the 25th in the morning. It was one of the first things we saw after seeing quite a bit of damage. But that was, seeing kids like that was a pretty tough moment to see and witness and film. And after that, it's just one after another. Started
walking toward one of his towers that had collapsed. At first you're looking down to make sure that you're stepping on the right place. You obviously don't want to become injured in these situations and tax the system further. When I looked up, I saw a mountain of rubble and what felt like dozens of people on top yelling names of their loved ones with their hands, trying to remove whatever it is that they could in that moment. At the same time, I saw rescuers carry the body of a person who had died, and the person was covered in a sheet. A woman who was related to the deceased stood by and let out, just a piercing scream. And I don't think I'll ever forget the sadness and desperation that she had on her face and that she let out with that scream.
So I met this couple who are trying to find. They already found their son, and they're trying to find their daughter, the little ones. And they just recently came back to Venezuela. It's a very common case of a migrant family trying to cope and return and make a living in Venezuela. And they returned from Trinidad, and they were just starting to get back on their feet here. And then this happened, and they lost everything. They lost the family and their kids, and are working on their own, digging, trying to find the bodies. For people, it's extremely important to find the remains to have a closure.
I grew up in Mexico City, and so I am familiar with earthquakes. I am also familiar with their destruction when they're powerful. And so when I saw the magnitude, it was higher than anything I had ever experienced or I'd covered. So initially it was this sense of shock, but also knowing that because I was not in Caracas, right, it truly was my duty to get the story out while my colleagues who were here, could perhaps either leave their homes or, find a place to work from, or, if they were injured, sort of assess themselves. And so at that moment, I just felt like, okay, I'm not there. I need to I need to work. I need to get the story out. And thankfully with help from other colleagues at AP located in other bureaus, we were able to, keep reporting, find user-generated content, also send that to customers after we verified it, just, keep working while we sorted out communications and we figured out how my colleagues here were doing.
The country has been in political turmoil since January after the arrest of President Nicolas Maduro. Even before his arrest, several crises have plagued the country, like rising inflation, poverty, and social media bans.
Venezuelans, we all feel affected. And I think it's just this came at a moment of such accumulation of suffering, an accumulation of bad times here, that I think that particularly hit Venezuelans hard. So what I want to keep looking closer to the families, and especially now to how the families are going to rebuild around after losing everything, and how as a Venezuelan family who lost everything, who was already struggling to make ends meet, how are they going to find ways of rebuilding in Venezuela? Also looking around what comes after such devastation, and that is community, friendship, solidarity, which we have seen a lot. So when everyone is working with a single goal, that is a very strong element of unity, a very strong element of a joint effort.
It's important for us as journalists, right, to remember that, for many of the people that we've encountered, they have a very, very long journey ahead, and that it is our duty as journalists to keep track of the recovery effort, to keep an eye on what the state does to assist them, what humanitarian organizations do as well, to ensure that all that money their nations have pledged in assistance, indeed gets here, and see how it is spent, and to see that, it is benefiting those it is meant to help.
It's easy to forget, even for us. So that's one thing we're not allowed to forget about them, to forget about the people that remain there. And as long as I have this channel, this camera, this responsibility, well, it's gonna be our mission to not let us forget, and to keep finding ways of telling different angles of this. So yeah, it's a sense, it's gratefulness, and it's a huge sense of responsibility.
This has been the story behind the AP story. I'm your host, Haya Panjwani. This episode was produced by Global Investigations intern Wisdom Emiliano Howell. For more on AP's coverage of the Venezuelan earthquakes and for previous episodes of this show, visit our AP News YouTube channel, wherever you get your podcasts, and apnews.com. Thanks for listening.